Hello everyone, my name is Dustin Soriano. I am a FSW student. This is PAD 4878, or the Capstone, my analytical research project. It's determining the method for retaining employees utilized by the Lee County Emergency Medical Services Department. Now, the problem statement is the most efficient method for the Lee County Emergency Medical Services Department to retain employees in order to prevent high turnover rates within the department. Some historical background: the county itself was founded in May 12th of 1887. In 2016, the population is estimated to be just over 688,000 people. The Lee County Emergency Medical Services Department itself was actually established in 1972. It was originally a private ambulance company that was then bought out by the local government. And today they currently have 37 ALS ambulances, that's advanced life support, and Lee Flight, which is a fixed wing aircraft, rotor wing aircraft, a helicopter. The department will operate in the 2015 and 2016 fiscal year off of about a $37.5 million budget. The current employee retention programs could definitely be greatly improved. It would save the taxpayers, the county, a great deal of money and improve the services. If no changes are made to the problem in regards to employee retention, the department is definitely going to lose support from the public as well as their staff and their just all of their shareholders. So if the BOCC begins to feel that Lee County EMS is inept to care for the citizens, they may even cut funding. They'll try to find a cheaper source to run medical calls in the county. They've done this in the past. Various companies have been known to reduce employee turnover rates by fairly substantial percentage and save millions of dollars in the long run by improving retention. Some of the issues that have been going on: stagnant pay, progressively busier work weeks, work hours. They've just plagued the system. The root cause regarding employee retention within LCEMS is, everybody's underpaid, overworked. There's a great responsibility regarding, patient care, and then there's all kinds of illnesses and ailments that the patients present with. A lot of emotional stress. So stakeholders are losing money again, continuing, hiring, just such a high turnover rate. So they're going to save the taxpayers money, and they'll also be able to have the ability to retain their higher standard of care and top employees. The people are going to benefit. The citizens of the county are going to benefit by having these top performers and getting better medical care treatment. So management will also be able to focus on other aspects of the job as opposed to just continually hiring people and training people. So the first case study was actually done on Lake EMS, and it was because they wanted to give their employees a raise in order to slow turnover rates. The Lake Emergency Medical Services Board, they're attempting to do about a 3% raise for the fiscal year 2016. Their turnover rates have been sky high, around 20% higher than the nation average. The nation average, I believe, is about 15%, and they were looking at about a 35% turnover rate, which is actually very similar to Lee County's as well. So an estimated $700,000 was going to be invested by the Lake EMS to train 78 new employees, and these were employees that were lost from the previous system. As of May 2015, the Lake EMS Board agreed to hire 10 new field personnel and buy 2 new buy 2 new ambulances in order to account for the amount of workload that these employees had, and hopefully that once they hire these new employees and train the other 78, it'll slow down their rate of turnover. Case study 2 was actually done via a hospital, and what the hospital says that EMS agencies may better, be able to slow down their turnover and better suit their organizations. So the hospitals basically said that the way that they come about everything is on day one, they found that most of the employees they decide to leave the company or organization within the first 6 months. So they begin on day one to train and instill time and effort into their employees. They think that everybody should be assigned a mentor, and that the managers also affect the satisfaction or retention of employees. And of course, better pay is also a huge denominating factor. They promote education, and they also have been trying to, or they encourage flexible work weeks, somewhat like the hospital has, and it assists employees and keeps them more satisfied, family life and so forth. They also want to increase the staff and staff levels to make the daily work life of the employees smoother and easygoing. It also decreases the risk of turnover. And they also definitely recommend to allow employees to share responsibility, so all the responsibility isn't put on just 1 or 2 individuals within the organization. Case study 3 has to do with retention challenges and the solutions that nonprofit organizations have had to deal with. A lot of hospitals, some ambulance companies are nonprofit, and then some hospitals also run ambulance companies. So the author suggests that nonprofit agencies attract to retain by looking at and modifying their recruitment strategy. So just better recruitment, boom, right there. Good managers should strive to keep employees involved and dedicated to the organization. Proper staffing, which disallows the thinning of staff by the organization or the company, which of course causes the employees stress, and thereby they become less engaged. So the utilization of employee commitment as well. Nonprofits, they can really keep employees involved and allow them to focus on and feel part of the organization's missions and objectives. Make the employees feel like they're worthy, and that their time with the organization is worthwhile in helping the organization. So nonprofits also consider holding managers accountable for their performance and influence on employee retention. So the first literature has to do with retention strategies in an IT industry. So the IT industry, which is an extremely high, they have an extremely high rate of turnover. They found that the reasons employees leave the organization are satisfaction and commitment, which are reciprocal to the relationship. Satisfaction, which precedes commitment. Number 3, satisfaction and commitment, which have no significant relationship. And the 4th, which is commitment that precedes satisfaction. Now, the best way to enhance employee retention that they found is to better understand and provide for your employees. This is usually done by making them feel as though they are truly the most important, valuable organizational asset, which any business person knows that that's true. Now, the second literature is employee perceptions and the workforce retention strategies within a health system itself. The most effective retention strategies they found were salary packaging, making sure that they've got appropriate step plans, and then employees are able to advance, through their career and continue to receive pay raises and things. Half-pay holidays. Of course, they can also receive overtime if they're working on that holiday, on top of getting half pay for just holidays in general. and professional development leave, such as educational and just betterment classes and things of that sort. So they stated that lack of financial gain was the most detrimental determining factor for employee retention. Now, the third literature, which is how to best measure health workforce turnover and retention, the authors describe 5 metric keys that are crucial to employee retention within the medical workforce. They define these 5 as: number 1, the median survival; 2, the Cox proportional hazard ratio; 3, the survival probabilities; 4, the crude turnover rates; and 5, the stability rates. Now, by using the data, the healthcare workforce managers were able to recognize that within the organization and devise appropriate strategies in order to retain employees. This was a pretty in-depth article, and they had a lot of numbers. They went over all these 5 metric keys and how they tied into one another and how they affected the organization. So the fourth literature was building relationships for retention. The External Skills Council was able to help Time Warner, which is a very well-known company, and they were as well. They were a phone service, and they've got very high turnover rate. They were able to develop a complete program for employees from recruitment to retirement, which is great. They have also equipped supervisors with skills in order to coach and not manage their employees, which is empowering for the employees, and it gives them greater responsibility. And it also allows them to, go about their own improvement how they see fit. The training team also worked on other factors that would influence engagement and retention. A lot of communication between management and the employees, better communication between management and the employees, assisted Time Warner in reducing their turnover rate as far as the phone goes and people that talk over phone sales. So the fifth literature is managing retention. This is at the Deloitte Consulting. They have extremely high expectations during the recruiting process, which they found to cause problems between the individual and the firm. They found that they've got to be able to have high standards, but those standards have to be able to be met. They can't be unexceptionally high, or else already right off the bat within recruitment it stresses the employees out, and they just won't see eye to eye with the firm, and they're probably going to leave, therefore high turnover. The firm can and also should offer its employees an environment where they're able to grow, be involved, and feel fulfilled. So encouragement, especially within management, training, so various things. The firm culture and flexible work schedules. So firm culture as in being, everybody getting together as a team effort, devising certain courses and or activities, whether they be during the work week or extracurricular, and as well, again, with the flexible work schedule, allowing people to not only come in and work and do a great job at work, but be able to go home and tend to their families and be able to enjoy their families as well. So alternative 1 was an incremental pay raise or step plan. Now this basically involves the Lee County Emergency Medical Services Department coming together and devising a certain step plan, whether that be, employees getting a 3% pay raise every single year for a yearly basis, or, having to serve 5 years and then getting like a 10% pay raise. But some sort of incremental pay raise or a step plan that employees know without a doubt, they know what they're working for, and that, hey, I just hit 7 years, So I know I'm going to get another 5% pay raise throughout their career, and without it having to be so random as it is now, where basically employees just kind of, oh, I wonder if we're going to get a raise this year or not. And this will definitely assist, or should definitely assist, in keeping employees. Alternative 2 was flexible scheduling, or a Kelly Day. Now, by offering flexible scheduling, they could either change to 12-hour shifts, meaning day or night, or they would have to research and basically a company and figure out what the busiest hours of the day and the work day were, and put certain trucks up for those days. Another thing that a lot of departments, especially fire departments, and this is countrywide, do is give a Kelly Day. A Kelly Day is basically a day set on such and such time, like most departments do every 4 weeks or sometimes every 6 weeks, where that day would be a work day for the employee, but they don't go to work, and they're paid for that day. The LCEMS department has a 24-hour on, 48-hour off schedule. It's very tough for employees. It doesn't matter if your shift comes on a holiday or your birthday or whatever. You still have to go into work. The only way to get a break from a 56-hour work week is to either call in sick or use up your vacation time, which vacation time we'll actually be speaking of next. And of course, this flexible scheduling, or the Kelly Day, will definitely increase morale and should slow turnover down. So that increased vacation time, what we were talking about in the past, is actually alternative 3. Increased vacation time will definitely help out a lot. It'll help ease people's minds. It'll help them to take more time off work and be able to spend more time with their families and things. As well, most EMS departments, most agencies such as the Lee County EMS department offer about 120 hours of vacation time per year, whereas Lee County only offers 96 hours of vacation time per year, and that's until you hit, I believe it's five years, and then they'll give you 120 hours. But most departments start off at 120 hours a year, which is 5 days, as opposed to the 96 hours or 4 days that the county gives. Moving on, alternative 4, which is improved management communication and employee engagement. The case studies and the literature, several of them showed that improved management communication, communication between management and their employees, as well as getting the employees more engaged within the organization, will also increase morale. It lets employees bond, and it just keeps them more focused on work and focused on the job. It also allows them to focus on their success within the company organization, and by building that bond, they will be able to increase retention. So, via these case studies and the literatures, and then coming up with the 4 alternatives, in order to review the alternatives and grade them, we basically use a review of the quantitative and comparative analysis. Now, the reason for this analytical research paper, and the reason it's being written, is to assess the methods, procedures that the Lee County Emergency Medical Services Department utilizes regarding the retention of its employees, in order to better decrease the high turnover rate within the department. Now, the paper will analyze and determine the best method for employee retention via these alternatives. And the Lee County Emergency Medical Services Department, their high turnover rate can definitely be avoided or can be bettered. The comparative analysis has been completed, followed by the conduction of a quantitative analysis. And the purpose of this analysis is to show the four possible alternatives and to distinguish which alternative provides the most value to the department. This was all done by a grading scale. So the grading scale, for instance, the comparative and quantitative analysis took place in four regards. Those four regards are legal, financial, political, and organizational, and the aspects within. And so for the legal grading scale, we have here in the PowerPoint, as you see, 5 from being no legal restriction at any level, all the way down to 0, which is an absolute legal restriction. And some of these restrictions, keep in mind, are such as like they can possibly be handled by a simple vote by employees, or they may have to go more in depth, such as the union, the employee union has to get involved and devise a plan or whatnot, and then the employees within that union have to vote on that, and then that contract will have to then be submitted and reviewed by the BOCC, or the Board of County Commissioners, in order for them to vote on it and ultimately approve. So the financial grading, again, goes from 5, which being no financial restrictions and there's sufficient funds already, existent for the alternative, to 1, which is no new monies exist, and they're going to have to seek out further monies, whether that be increasing the millage rate, or going again to the BOCC and just increasing the budget in general, or figuring out other ways to cut funds here and add other funds, to basically just reallocate funds. Now, the organizational grading scale went from 5, which is a positive impact on the organizational personnel and no negative consequences for the organization, to a 0, which is no positive impact to the organization, and it would actually create a negative impact for the organization in its entirety. The political grading scale also goes from a 5, which is a positive political impact on the service jurisdiction within no negative consequences to the organization, and to a 0, which it just not politically applicable to the organization in itself. A 1 is also no positive political impact to the service population and no positive impact for the organization whatsoever, so a double negative by receiving a 1 in the political grading scale. So, for instance, here on the screen is the alternative 4 spreadsheet. This is how it was originally graded by all the legal, the financial, organizational, and political individuals, which I was able to question and interview. This is the grading sheet and how it scored in its entirety, which you can see at the bottom. The total points was 191 points, and that's out of 220. So the final spreadsheet analysis, which actually alternative 4 was the best alternative, by conducting the quantitative and comparative analysis for the paper, the most proficient alternative was discovered, and for the Lee County Emergency Medical Services Department to retain employees and prevent the high turnover rate. Now, this most efficient method was alternative 4, or to better their communication between managers and employees, and to further increase employee engagement within each other. Now, alternative 1, which was the incremental pay raise, scored 139 out of 220 points. It was the second best alternative. Alternative 2, which was flexible scheduling, scored 133 points out of 220, which was the third best alternative. And then alternative 3, which was the increased vacation time, actually scored the lowest, and it was 127 points out of 220. Alternative 1 had its issues. Of course, mainly budgetary issues. Alternative 2 with the flexible scheduling, and it seemed, especially with the Kelly Day in mind, had some rather large issues, because not only would you have to increase the budget, but you'd also have to hire personnel for something such as a Kelly Day, or even like a flexible scheduling. More personnel very well may be needed, and therefore, the serious increase in staff, which if you're hiring staff, you're also putting out more money as far as the budget goes. Also, with the flexible scheduling, what was the other issue? As far as political goes, there was a fairly large issue there. Lots of union contracts, lots of union meetings. The BOCC would be heavily involved. And alternative 3 was the same thing. Now you're taking out a lot of time, a lot more time as well, and serious contracts and budgetary issues. So alternative 4, again, being the best method that this project found to be the best method, scored 191 points out of 220. And it just required, there were a few issues, mainly on the budgetary side of, when would this management communication take place? Would it be during work hours, or would it be extracurricular, after work hours? Would employees be getting paid if it was after work hours? And if it was during work hours and employees were to attend, who would cover their area or zone or whatnot? There were some issues with it, but all in all, it seemed like the folks that I interviewed thought this, on the grading scale, the individuals that I interviewed seemed to grade this much higher as basically being that the management communication, and especially the employee engagement, could be handled after hours and possibly not cut into the budget as much. So the implementation of the program for the management communication and employee engagement, which is alternative 4, it will not have to go through the union very much, or be approved by the BOCC, as long as they remain within their budget. The meetings, they'll have to determine, they can be held weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, maybe even every other month, bi-monthly. It all determines what the union, what the employees, what management comes up and determines that their plan is going to be in the best, the most appropriate thing for the county to do, and while implementing alternative 4. So the administration will have to appoint EMS staff to be coordinators of the extracurricular activities. Surveys can assist these staff in finding popular activities that is going to get the most people engaged, and just to find out what everybody's interested in. Now the program evaluation, now the reasoning and the time frame, in an attempt to ensure that Alternative 4 has been appropriately implemented and has a desired effect within the department and its staff, it needs to be evaluated. There's absolutely no rhyme or reason that they should skip or not do an evaluation. Now this evaluation, depending on its implementation and what the individuals who decide to implement the Alternative 4 and the implement management communication and employee engagement should take place. But the evaluation should normally take place between about 18 to 24 months is a fairly reasonable time. Now the program evaluation, a survey method, can also be done, within these 18 to 24 months, or not within, but at about that 18 to 24 month period. Now, this evaluation should be completed by the employees by a simple survey. They should, highly recommend and suggest try to get everybody involved to complete a survey to get the most feedback, the most information possible. The survey will be done by a scorecard. It'll be ranked from 1 to 5. 1 meaning strongly disagree, and 5 meaning that they strongly agree. 3 will be like a neutral, middle of the roads. They don't particularly strongly agree or disagree. Now, if they find out that alternative 4 does not meet the organization's needs, does not reduce the high turnover rate, does not increase employee retention, their contingency plan will basically be to fall back to alternative 1, which is the incremental pay raise or step plan, alternative 2 for the flexible scheduling or Kelly days, and or alternative 3 for the increased vacation time. Basically in that order. If not, they can choose to implement whichever plan they decide may better suit the organization, especially after doing such a strenuous process and getting to know the process, and they may be able to better find out what's going to better suit the organization. So the department will be able to fall back on these previously mentioned alternatives if alternative 4 is not successful. And that's my video, that's my presentation. That was my paper. It's been it's been a great experience, great learning experience. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.